Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Build Cool Stuff, where we occasionally try to build cool stuff. My name is Branislav or Bane or Bob, I respond to all of those. I've been in this hobby for the past 3 years. I've built a lot of them. As you can see, these are some older builds. Some of them are straight builds without painting, without anything added. Some of them are fully painted, like this GM for example. I really love it, I really enjoy it, and these videos on my channel will be just my take on the whole paint process. By no account these are not tutorial videos because I'm not a master painter. But I did learn everything I know. Well, most of the things I know I've learned off of YouTube, so I've decided to share some of that knowledge and give back to the community. Today we're going to work on the blue guy you see on the right. That's actually the finished build. This is the master grade Gouf or Gouf. With these paints and some others, we're gonna turn this blue guy into this. We're gonna do some battle damage, we're gonna do full paint, we're gonna use the chipping fluid technique with a lot of scraping, a lot of damaging, to scrape off that paint and reveal the metallic base under. So this is the full process. I think I didn't leave anything out. We have preparation, which is like separate parts from the runners, from the plastic frames. Clean the parts, brush and file everything, prepare them for painting by putting them on alligator clips. Then the painting goes like primer, metallic paint, protective coat to protect that metal layer, chipping fluid to allow us to remove the paint from where it needs to show the scratches, and the color of course. And the final assembly is like assembly and chipping and on and on. So this is the first part, the cleaning. I got them, well, it was off camera. I got them off the runners, all the parts, and then just easy with one-sided nippers and the blades and the files. I was removing the plastic remains, so-called gates. And I didn't mind if they're scratched a little bit too much, because this will be heavily weathered kit with battle damage and everything. I suggest you try glass files. They're wonderful. You can even buy glass files for nails if you need a clean build. So if you're not painting your kit, then glass files will leave a very nice smooth surface. Once I'm done separating parts from the runners, preparing them, I try to separate them by color. It helps with the painting process later. Try not to make the mistake, because once you put the primer on, they'll all be the same color. And here's a cat, because from what I've heard, cat videos get quite a few likes. So yeah, her name is Masha. She's bigger now because this is an old video. So I'm building this master grade kit, and it's a really nice but really old kit. It has full inner frame, but like no posability whatsoever. But I don't care for that. I don't build them to play with them. I build them to paint, to enjoy, to express myself, if you will. I build them because I really like building models. And I really can't stop. I'm like 100 kits in this already. Over 100. I have a backlog, I have million tools, million paints and all that. You know how it goes. So after you take off all the parts of the frames of the runners, you put them on the alligator clips, and you never have enough alligator clips, and you start painting. This is my old paint booth, and since I've been making this video for a long time, I've upgraded the paint booth, you'll see it later, to a really nice plastic one. And to be honest, I really like this cardboard box ventilator fan much better, because it's bigger and more spacious, and I don't care if I spill or, well, you can see the state of it, right? I don't care for the state of it. So yeah, disgrace. So Yeah, this is actually the third cardboard box that I've been using. Once it's too ugly, I just throw it away, get the new one, cut off the hole for the fan, and that's it. So back to the actual build. Once you start painting, you know that you always apply primer first. Primer is a type of paint that acts as a glue between the color and the plastic model, so it's really important. Depending on the technique you'll be using, it's important whether you prime with the darker, with like whether you prime with the black primer or white or gray or any other color. The technique we'll be using for this kit won't require you to pay attention to the primer because they'll be fully covered. We're gonna do the chipping fluid technique. So what I'll do, I'll apply primer that you can see here. So primer, then the layer of metallic paint, something like titanium or silver, anything light silver like stainless steel. You paint all your parts and you put them on a stand, and here I'm trying to explain that these cardboard stands are no good. You lift it up and all the alligator clips fall down, so it kind of defeats the purpose. Good old piece of foam is what you need, trust me, way better. You can put them tilted, you have more space, you can organize your paint job way better. At least in my experience, this is a much better choice. For the inner frame, I'm using Vallejo gunmetal. Yes, and I'll be dry brushing it later with just silver or just chrome. Gives the best results. You can also use some washes to give it more oily, dirty, oily look, but I didn't do that here. Just went for gunmetal and dry brushed silver, all Vallejo, like no thinner included, nothing, just paint and go. Other than that, I use lacquer-based colors, paints. Most of the time I just use Mr. Hobby's paints. They're really good, easy to paint, easy to clean, which is very important. I've struggled a lot with acrylics at the beginning. Whether I wasn't painting well, I also had really bad equipment. I had one of those airbrush compressors that looks like a fish tank pump, so that's no good, no bueno. You need something a bit stronger, and I would recommend if you're buying your first airbrush compressor, go for a compressor with the air tank, with the storage, because it will give you a steady flow of paint, steady flow of air that translates into a steady flow of paint, and more control is, well, it's better. You can see here I'm cleaning my equipment. I left it in the video because cleaning equipment, cleaning airbrush is super important. Don't be skimpy on your cleaning fluids. Just go and rinse it as many times as you need. Take out the needle, clean the needle very carefully. Don't bend the tip of the needle, and make sure it's clean. Dry brushing technique, one of my favorites. The first, let's call it a trick, the first trick I've learned painting, and I fell in love with it. Basically, like I said earlier, gunmetal and then dry brush with the silver. Make sure that there is no paint on your brush before you start doing this, before you start brushing, and it will be good. If you leave too much, no good. It's too obvious, it loses the subtlety. This is the first time I've done some damage scars, because these are like battle, like tanks, right? Mobile suits are battle tanks basically. And I wanted this to look like heavy damage, like it's seen its share of battles. So I cut off one of the horns off the shoulder, one of the spikes there. I've done some bullet holes on it, and I guess these bullets are really large caliber, they get really hot, so I've decided to melt the plastic, because I guess wherever the big caliber bullet hits, like with tanks, it melts the surrounding armor. Anything can help you doing battle damage. Like you can see here, I'm using the saw, and then later pliers, nippers, and soldering iron is your best friend. I did make a mistake. I primed the parts before I did the battle damage, so I had to do the primer again. But I didn't include it in the video. This video, when I put all the material together, it came to like 19 hours. I was really thorough on recording, so I had to cut a lot of it out and speed it up. So as we progress, this is the part where I'm painting the metallic part. All the lacquer paints that I'm applying, that I use, are always thinned, and I usually thin them 1-to-1 ratio with the thinner. Except for the primer. I thin primer. Like there is 40 milliliters of primer in the bottle, and I add 60 milliliters of leveling thinner. How did I come up with that? Just did it. Ignore that Jim Beam. I said we don't have enough money grabbing hobbies, right? So this is what the silver coat looked like. Then I'm going with the polyurethane Vallejo satin varnish. Does it say satin there? Well, I just needed something to protect this metallic layer, because the next layer will be chipping fluid and then the paint, and then you need to scratch off the paint. So you don't want to scratch off the metallic part. You give it a nice wet coat, wait for it to dry. I usually wait at least a day for it to dry and then continue painting. I made a big mistake. You won't see the chipping fluid process. Well, it looks the same as this. There is a fluid coming out of the airbrush and you're painting. It's transparent. But I did apply only one layer, which is a big mistake. It should have at least 2 layers, because I made some nice heavy coats and they ran down due to gravity, and then I didn't have enough of chipping fluid when applying this color. For the color, I've used Chinese brand. These are also lacquer-based paints, and the company is Alchemy, I believe. And well, I can't read anything that's on the bottle because, like I said, it's Chinese and I don't read or speak it. My Chinese is still very basic, shame on me, but it paints great. However, due to one layer of chipping fluid, and this is a lacquer paint, it got stuck pretty well, and it was really hard to remove it later. When you do the chipping fluid technique and you finish painting the color as well, what you need to do is dip your brush in the water and just start brushing over the paint, and it will start scratching off. It didn't happen here. I mean, it did on some parts, but I had to use, you'll see, I had to use the toothpicks and brushes and even knives, so that's not what I was going for, but hey, we'll learn as we go. There is a big process of learning if you want to build cool stuff. And yeah, this is my upgraded paint booth with some cool stickers, yes. And my airbrushes and my compressor that also got upgraded by the time I'm doing this voiceover now. I have a new airbrush compressor. This one was built by me. I mean, I bought the motor, obviously. So, here's the assembly part. I never paint the poly caps because, you know, the paint scratches off of them too easy anyways. And most of them are just inside. Especially with these older kits, there's an awful lot of poly caps. Building is supposed to be fun, the final assembly. Unless you made a big break in the building process, like I did, due to my back surgery, so for a long time I couldn't sit or stand, or I couldn't do anything. And I left everything right there where you see it now. So my cat was playing and she lost a couple of parts, and out of 5 parts I've managed to find 3 So she lost a whole knee joint and I had to rebuild it. But other than that, it all goes straightforward, it's nice and smooth, and it's fun. That's the most important part. By the way, the music that we're listening to is a band from Belgrade, Serbia. It's called Bullet For A Badman, and I love their music. I've been a big fan of their music for a long time, and they were kind enough to let me use their music for the video. So if you wanna listen to them, they have plenty of really awesome songs. If you wanna listen to them, there's a link in the description, so follow it and enjoy. Bullet For A Badman. Okay, here is the assembled kit. Now, yeah, I've painted the beads off camera as well. I hate painting beads. I love Zaku's, but these beads are a terrible nightmare for me because you can't put them on the alligator clips. But I've put them on the... I've destroyed earphones. I've put the beads on them because as you stretch the cable, the rubbery part stretches and gets thinner, so you can put the beads on, and then when you release it, it gets thicker, so it holds them apart. It's really convenient for painting. I finished assembly, which you will soon see, and went on with scratching off the paint. The kit ends up looking a lot different than this. Once you start doing this, that's the longest process of the build actually. You gotta start gentle, you know, but I couldn't really maintain it, and I ended up scraping with plenty of different tools. So once again, if you're doing this chipping fluid technique, be careful how you apply the chipping fluid. If it's too much, it will run down. If it runs down, do another layer. If it's not enough, well, adds up the same. You won't be able to scratch off the paint properly. So, be smart. There's the shield with the battle damage, and now the rest of the kit. Piece of cake. Alright, I gotta monitor the heat, the temperature of my computer, because it's an old computer and I have a cat, so I bet it's full of cat hairs, so it doesn't cool that easy, and it tends to turn off in the middle of recording. I can only imagine what will it look like when I start the final render. Here you can see that I'm trying to scratch off all the paint from the bullet damage areas, and well, you want it without paint, you want it just silver, just metal, like just the melted metal showing. Other than that, when I approach this scratching thing, the part of the build, I go through the edges, because edges are the ones that show wear and tear the most, a lot more than the flat surfaces. The advice I can give you is just be patient and go with it. Put some nice music on, or do what I did. I called my cousins that I haven't seen, because I live in China and everyone else lives in Serbia, so I call my cousins or my family and just talk to them while I'm doing this. Not bad. Plus the time difference is 6 hours, so I do this in the evening and it's like midday over there, so everything is cool. Yeah, I'm thinking now this whole process went really south due to not enough scratching fluid. You gotta be very careful. I've managed to scratch, in places I've managed to scratch all the way down to the plastic, so I had to fix it with the silver color, which defeats the whole purpose of chipping fluid and the whole process. But it is what it is. I don't give up once I'm into build. You just go through towards the end. You just want to finish it. You want to see the final product. There's a lot of effort, a lot of time went into this. Besides, the process of painting is what I enjoy the most. It's not the finished product. I don't do it to have robots to go and play with them and show other kids and watch them being jealous. I build it because I really enjoy the building process. So you can see here I've finished most of the scratching. Not really believable, I can tell you that now. I need some shading. I didn't do pre-shading or because I couldn't. I didn't do post-shading, so I'll do it now. I'll use these Tamiya brushes. You can also use dry pigments, but these brushes are really useful, and I'll do clear Mr. Color top coat in the end. I've tested it out with the spoons and it works really great. A word of advice, always have spoons at hand because they are really helpful. Chances are you'll always have a little bit of the paint left over in your airbrush when you're doing the paint job. So have some spoons, paint on them. You'll be able to test out the painting techniques, chipping, different colors, different techniques. So yeah, it's useful. As I went with these brushes, I just brushed the shading. Well, I made it dirty through the corners, through the edges, and it made it look better, like darker towards the edges. So that's that. Well, there's not much I can tell you. I use gunmetal color for that, and that's how it goes. As with all the shading, shading will show way better when you're applying it on lighter colors, whether you pre-shade or do the post-shading like this. As you can see on this gray surface, it shows really nice, right? While on darker surfaces, well, you don't see that much. So you gotta be careful when you're applying to lighter surfaces because it'll be easy to mess it up, like I did here. But the good thing is you can always moisten cotton thingamajig, cotton swab, and clean it, because until you top coat it and fix these pigments, you can just clean them off with a little bit of water. This is a really satisfactory part for me. I really like doing this. And you know what? You can easily go too far with it. One thing I've learned doing photography for many years is less is more. There is a general rule, less is more. You can get easily carried away when you're doing this weathering thing. Don't get carried away. It tends to look unbelievably bad. So just take it easy. And here it is, almost done. I've decided to do some dripping, rusty water. So, like I've seen other modelers doing that, and it looks cool. And it did look cool, and it felt cool applying it. But, to be honest, it doesn't show at all. You'll see later the footage of the final product, the finished kit. Doesn't show at all. So it was waste of time. It shows more on the bare plastic, these Gundam markers, bare plastic or lighter colors, right? Here on the darker, not so much, almost not at all. So the final product is here. This is the final build, and I'm not as happy as I thought I'd be, but I'm quite happy with what the backpack looks like. The whole thing about this hobby is you enjoy the process and you learn as you go. I've learned most of the things I know from YouTube, so I've decided after 3 years of doing this hobby and like 100+ kits in, to share it on YouTube as well. If you can pick up something from this video, great. If not, well, still support this channel, subscribe, like the video, everything that people usually say. Thank you for watching, so see you in the next video.